Hello, everyone. So, thank you so much for coming here tonight. I'm really excited. So, yeah, my talk is Somehow I Managed to Create Impact Beyond Roadmaps. And to start with, I would like to tell you a very short tale. So, a couple of years ago, I started working in my new job. This is me working in London. And I was new to the team, and I started working with a PM who was in this team, and they had already been working for a long time, but they didn't have a designer at the time. That meant that the engineers were working with like quick mock-ups or napkin drawings, and that was what they were getting delivered. And to be honest, I feel like I really appreciate his commitment and his great resolution, but this also meant that I was a bit at disadvantage. So he started doing some new work, and then he delivered to me a bunch of like wireframes, full-on journeys, and everything specced out, and also some like design improvements along the way. Obviously, my face was a bit like, what are we doing here? I felt somewhat offended, a bit disempowered as a designer. And not only to be in this position where I have to just like embellish or paint over a wireframe, but also the lack of sort of like mutual understanding and yeah, the way that our disciplines should collaborate. I don't know if this might be familiar to some of you, but I hope some of this resonates. And the idea is that from that point, obviously, I think there's no point in really getting annoyed. If anything, I think this was an opportunity for us to improve our relationship, our processes, just like set the tone that we want to be working together going forward. And not only obviously with the PM, but obviously like engineers and the whole teams. And this is what I'm here to talk about today. So, how can we instill the value of design to create impact as designers within our companies? And this talk also, I want to say, it's not only directed at designers, but it's also for everybody else in ways that you can empower designers and maximize what you can get in return. So first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Val, and I'm a product design manager at VEED. I was born in Venezuela. That's a view from my house. And I've been in Europe for about 15 years. And since then, I started out like many of us in product design. I actually started out doing graphic design, but I always had a very big passion for films and moving image. So then I decided to jump into film editing and doing a lot of motion design. So always circling around these areas. So then you might ask yourself, then how do you end up doing product design? So there's three things that I can tell about myself. Is like I love a complex challenge. I like psychology and human behavior, and I really like to think creatively about the future, always imagining future possibilities, like how is that going to influence our behavior. I'm obsessed with the movie Heer, like what are all these possible futures? So that's why I decided a good way to combine all of these passions was working in product design. And I really love talking to real users, just like go out there, do interviews, and then apply that to the products that I'm building. In this role, I've been lucky enough to work in really fun products. So I worked for Emmery, which is a startup for a banking app for kids. And there I got to create this gamified experience so kids could learn about finance. And it was just such a fun job, honestly, like talking to kids and like delivering also like working with illustrators to do all of this stuff. I also worked at Sky, and there I was creating also these experiences for a smart camera that you put on your TV. So this was oh, sorry. Sorry guys, I just added a slide that I didn't know was there. But yeah, at Sky I was working for this smart camera TV that yeah, it was really exciting. So we were doing a lot of games that we were integrating into the TV. We also did like an app where you could exercise. So yeah, it was a very fun challenge. After that, I even embarked on my own journey. I tried to make my own app, entrepreneurial. I tried it. It's really hard. But, you know, it was a big learning, and you take a lot from failure as well. And I always feel like there's a way that I can manage to weave in all these past experiences into the current work that I'm doing. So right now, I am working at VEED, where I get to design a video tool, which is, you know, feels very perfect for my background. And I'm going to tell you a bit about VEED. So if you're not familiar with the company, we are the largest online video editing platform, and we empower people to create videos effortlessly. it looks, well, this is, yeah, a little bit of the features that we have. So millions of people are using VEED right now, and our mission is to break down these barriers to creating video content. So we're trying to make it really accessible from beginners to professionals, and all type of people use it, to be honest. For example, teachers, marketeers, freelancers, and so many more. We have grown a lot over the past year, and now we know that every second there is one video exported with VEED. And this might resonate with a lot of you, but even before 2023, we were already working with some AI features. For example, we had auto subtitles, or we also had removing background. But since then, we've built many more capabilities, thank you to all the advancements. So it's not just sprinkling, it's basically, enhancing the whole experience through it. And we built so many cool features, for example, like Magic Cut, eye contact, like when you look at, it makes you look at the camera even if you're reading from a script, or it can help you remove silences when you give a speech and you have those awkward like moments in between. We also created, for example, avatars. So instead of you talking to camera, you can put an avatar, you can even clone yourself. And the reason why I'm mentioning all these features is because this has been possible through the collaboration of PMs, designers, and engineers. But of course, with all of this has been built in 2023. So it means that with all that speed and all that growth, a lot of challenges and also depth can come in. And so I faced similar challenges across also the other types of organizations where I worked in. And this leads me to the story that I was telling in the beginning. A lot of the challenges are more structural around how teams and processes work. And this is where I find myself many times as a designer. And again, this might resonate with some of you thinking like this. So my PM did all the wireframes. That's my job. Design is much more than aesthetics. Or I don't even understand the problem that we are solving. And I think that if we think of this, we can translate this into there are blurry lines in ownership. Leadership doesn't embrace user-centric design, and designers are not really part of the strategic decisions. And the reason why we feel this way is because product designers are inherently problem solvers, innovators, and user advocates. And involving design through the entire process, from strategy to delivery, will actually pay in the long run. And this is, again, what I want to speak to you about. So instilling the value of design at the core of the organization to create impact beyond those roadmaps. So I will be sharing 3 tips around how we can maximize our impact as designers. And these tips are around understanding organizational context, so learning what works for your company and what doesn't, which are the best ways for you to communicate. The other one is around fostering collaboration. So by bringing everyone to your design journey, creating spaces and rituals, how you can share early and often, and also becoming a catalyst for innovation. So build visions creatively and shape the future. So let's go to the first one. Understanding organizational context. I know this might sound a bit obvious, but the reality is that I've faced this myself, and I've seen so many people throughout their career at different levels of seniority actually struggling to understand the context that they're working in. So what I mean with this is, let's do this exercise. What is actually needed from me? What are the company goals? And how do I really fit within this company? So let's say that you might join a startup who's much more like future-led. You need to deliver things quickly, you need to work with speed, and maybe you join a much bigger company where you can be more strategic or spend more time in certain initiatives. So if we try to adapt our thinking into the places that we go coming from the last one, I think that's never going to really fit the mold. So ultimately, understanding this context is what's going to lead us to more informed decision-making. And I give here the example of VEED. For example, we've grown a lot in the past 6 years. We started with 2 people who were the founders, and we've grown to 200 today. So of course, imagine all the impact in the organization in terms of processes and structure, and how a lot of that young startup thinking is still trickles down today, and how as designers, we might be expected to do other things. Also for context, we work in a traditional model in the sense of we have teams with PMs and EMs in design, working in specific product areas. And again, because of our growth, I am, as a designer, I'm probably more expected to work on in a much more faster way. I'm asked to have a much more bigger culture of ownership and to be really proactive. So I think that I am part of shaping those processes. So if you're coming to one of these contest companies, understanding that context is really important because your ask will be very different. And so something that has worked for me in the past is setting these expectations or agreements, which means that, for example, in the example that I gave you at the beginning, when I was working with this PM, I set up an agreement, which was like, look, this is not the way that I prefer to work. Why don't we reorganize our ways of working? And I can say also like, this is the way that I prefer to hear feedback. This is the milestones that I'm going to work throughout the project. And even if it sounds so boxy, I think it's a very good way to approach ways of working with your colleagues. And for the expectations, for example, when you join a new company, what I work on is setting expectations for designers with other people that they will work in, like, for example, with our PMs, with engineers, even other designers, so they know the challenge that they're coming in. So the ask is that if you guys jump into a new team or in a new company, if you don't have those expectations, maybe it's good for you to ask for them. Another thing is about speaking the language of the business. And this is a bit cold, but ultimately we work for businesses that want to create revenue. So when design fails to speak in the language of the business or tie our design initiatives into revenue, I think we are missing a big place where we can actually showcase our impact. So I really like this phrase that remaining relevant as a creative professional takes much more than creativity. We need to understand the language of the business. Design schools don't teach us the strategic language that is now essential to getting our job done. And I really like this. This is a slide from, I saw a talk from Yuki, which is Figma's VP, and he says how to collaborate. He tells PMs how to collaborate with designers, and he always tells them to adapt their language. So instead of talking KPIs and features, he tells them, why don't you guys speak user value or user cases? And I always tell the opposite to designers, which I find really funny, which is like, why don't you adapt your language and start speaking more of this? In reality, we should probably all be speaking both, right? Which is user centricity and the business language. So that's it for understanding context. The next one is around fostering collaboration. So I have a few ways in which I think we can do this. So I feel that this is our design journey. So it usually goes like this. Design is like a journey of play, is of connection, of going back and forth, speaking to users. And the reality is that what we have to do is bring people into the journey. So the way that we can do this is instead of like waiting till the end, showing designs, and then speaking about our design thinking or like how we came up with a specific solution, what we can do is bring people along with us in this journey. So what we started doing, for example, right now is really embedded within our teams. It's like sharing early and often. This will help keep everyone in sync of what's going on. But it's also really nice. It just means that everybody's part of the solution and of the projects that you're making. And especially for VEED, we are a remote-first company. So obviously this has become even more important because we don't have that face-to-face where we can share so many other things. So we now ask a lot of designers. They love to share in our channels. They put their files on as well. They let people go in, put notes around, and just like leave feedback. So I think that this is really fun as well. And other ways that we've been doing it, of course, we're a video company. What a best way to share our work than through videos. And I've saying that some people have taken this into a more creative lens. So I'm just going to show you some examples of what I mean.
Good evening. It's Monday, April 15th. These are your headlines for today. Connor has made good progress on the design systems work, removing the bootstrap dependency and setting up color theming. He'll be doing some more work this week.
Or So I know this is very silly, but I love this creativeness, and this brings people to want to watch the videos as well and just comment through. And we've seen this also across the company. Like there are PMs sharing their quarterly roadmaps in this manner, and it's just so much fun. Other ways, for example, of fostering collaboration as well is just creating the spaces and rituals. So having, for example, well, a lot of this are just typical like design rituals, which are design pairings or obviously doing critiques and sessions for work in progress. But other things that we started to do a bit more at VEED is, for example, doing design jams, which means that designers, PMs, and engineers get up and do everything in Fig Jam, and they work together every time that they're working on their projects. So this helps a lot to bring everyone into your journey as a designer. Another one is, for example, product syncs. This used to be like monthly product syncs where all the product managers got together and they speak a little bit of, the strategy and the work that they're doing. But as for myself as a design manager, I feel that if you have these spaces but you don't include designers, then you're creating a silo, and also designers feel that they're left out or they're not part of that strategic decision making. So right now we have embedded designers as well. And for product reviews as well, every person has to represent their own area. So every time there's a product review, PMs, designers, and engineers have to present. So if you're not doing it today, I would push you to try to do this, because are ways that definitely you're going to show how much more value you can have. And other ways as well is becoming an educator. So as designers, I think we have also a big job to actively share and educate on user-centric practices and the role of design. So for example, when I was working at Sky, I noticed that I was working with a lot of 3D designers, Unreal Engine artists, other types of engineers. And these were guys that were really not used working like with product. So a lot of the things that I was talking to them didn't really make sense in the terms of like the rationale of why I was making certain decisions. So I decided to start a couple of design thinking workshops and again bring them to my part of thinking. And this actually helped a lot. Apparently, they share those recordings with other teams, for example, with industrial design, the ones that were building the actual TVs. And apparently it's been like successful for other teams to start implementing also design thinking. And finally, another way that we can create impact is being catalysts for innovation. So after all, design is show rather than tell. So I think that no one better than us can excel at crafting narratives around visions that can steer our teams and product directions. So I think that we can lead certain initiatives around this. A great prototype, of course, will always be worth 100 meetings. And this is just a silly example as well, but I was working in the smart camera and there was no way for me to actually go and like actually prototype what I wanted to explain. So I got a bit creative, did a bit of theater, and just like pretended that this was happening, like this motion on the TV. But I think that as designers, we can be really creative in the way that we can showcase our ideas. Another example as well is like, let's say that now we want to work on what the future of video will look at VEED, or how we might redesign the dashboard. We want to create these visions to bring people in. And the final outlook might look again as a video that we can then share with all of the stakeholders, share with the rest of the company, and they can buy into our vision. This will not be something that we'll put out, obviously, for advertising, but this is something that we can just create internally that starts off from a design vision. So yeah, we did a couple of examples there. And it's really nice just to see this afterwards getting trickled into teams' product roadmaps. And finally, I want to say that Catalyst for Innovation also means that we can shape this future. And right now we're at a very interesting intersection with AI, which means that we can start creating our own futures, new patterns. So I think this is a super exciting time. What I mean by that, for example, is that we have this feature, it's called Magic Cut. How are you integrating this as a designer into your platform? How creative can you be? Because obviously if you go out there and you try to see who's done something similar, there's very few examples, which means that right now everybody's trying to integrate AI, but it's on you to decide what these new patterns will be, how you can shape the practice and the future. And the same for AutoZoom. We're creating this in our app. And I'm like, well, let's see what else is out there. And there's not much. So I'm like, this is so much fun. We can actually make it ourselves. So yeah, to summarize, I just want to bring back the 3 points that I spoke of. So understanding organizational context, again, is learning what works for your company and what doesn't. What are the best ways to communicate? Fostering collaboration is about bringing everyone to your design journey, creating the spaces and rituals where you can share early and often. And for catalyst of innovation is building these visions creatively and shaping the future. There is always opportunity to create impact beyond roadmaps. So the question now is, how will you create impact? Thank you very much. And also we're hiring. Thank you.